Hi, this is Stephanie, and I'm so glad you're here. This is This Reader's Life, and today I'm going to talk about um, something that I saw that I guess it's sort of a tag and it's sort of not a tag, but it's the 5 hardest books you've ever read. And 5 came to me so easily, and that I thought I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm not 100% sure where the tag comes from. I will try to list where it came from. I think um, I have seen a couple of different booktubers do it, and I don't know if it needs to be attributed or not, but I will look into that and put all that below in the comments. But right now I'll just go through my 5 hardest books that I've ever read, and I think there's 2 ways that you can look at this. You could say they're hard because they're hard to understand, or the content is difficult. And I have one that I had trouble reading because of references to things I didn't know anything about. And then I think the other 4 were difficult for me based on content. So, and the longer I think about it, the more I can think of a few that were difficult for me. But these are the 5 that came to my mind directly. So it's going to be kind of a quickie video because I have lots of other things going on. It's springtime, guys, and I am excited about gardening. And I've been putting up bird feeders, and I have 2 bird houses that my son and his wife gave me. It's John to plan my garden a little bit. We're planning a possible short vacation. I'm working outside. I just tore down I have a long row of sunflowers that bloom usually in September. And once they've died back, they're ugly, but I don't try to take them down until spring because it is a hard job. So I did that the other day in the wind, and I think most of my scratches are all gone, but I was all scratched up. So, but anyway, the hardest books that I think I've ever read, and the first one I'm going to mention, and it's a book that I truly, truly loved. It was C.S. Lewis's Surprised by Joy, and it was a hard book to understand. His sentences are wonderful, but there were so many references to his education in England quite some time ago. Probably it was in the 20s or 30s. I honestly, maybe before that, but I honestly don't remember. But yeah, I think the 20s or 30s. But his Surprised by Joy, it sounds so simple, and he references constantly characters from books I've never read, lines and information from books I've not read, and even concepts that I don't know anything about. I'm obviously not as well educated as C.S. Lewis was, and I think education then was different. There's a lot of Greek and Roman and Old English references to things I didn't understand. So I liked the book. I stopped and looked a lot of things up, but I realized that, as a matter of fact, my sister and I read it at the same time, and at one point I sent her something that said it was a particular chapter, and I said, I'm skipping the rest of this chapter. I do not understand what he's talking about. And it was just references to his education and his philosophy. And I'm not a philosopher, and I didn't understand it, and I finally gave up on that particular chapter. However, I did get the gist of the book. It was his journey from not having any real belief system to Christianity. And some of the book felt to me a lot like he was writing it down to sort it out in his own mind. So it wasn't a diary, it wasn't epistolary at all. However, it sort of felt that way, that he was explaining it in some ways to himself. So I enjoyed the book, but it was a hard book for me to read. The next one, I wrote these down, is, and it's another book that I just read recently, and that is George Saunders' Lincoln in the Bardo. It's considered experimental fiction. I still don't know if I liked the book or not. I'm still not sure that I understood it. It talks about Lincoln's son who passed away when Lincoln was in office, and his visits to his the mausoleum where his son was placed, and it talks about his son and other characters that are caught in the in-between, which they're calling the bardo. And the book is written in a way that is so hard to understand. And then the sentences and the conversations that go on between the people in the bardo, the way that it's written out, the way that it's the way the dialogue is written, it is always, I can't explain it. Someone would have, if you look at the book, you'll know right away what I'm talking about, and you don't have to read it to understand that part of it at all. You can just see how it's done. But that book was all over the place, and I honestly, I don't know. I still don't know if I liked it. There were parts of it that I did like, and I liked learning a little bit about Lincoln, but so much of it was fictional that it's impossible to know how I felt about it. And my dog has just come in here to see what I'm doing. No, he's not. He doesn't want anything to do with me. He just wants to lay down on his cushion. I'll try to get a picture and show you later. Oh no, he's going to scratch on his cushion, so I'm sure you can hear that. The next book that I read that was a hard book based on content was Helter Skelter. And I read this book when I was a teenager. It scared me to death. It was written by Vincent Bugliosi and I wrote it on here and I can't remember. Kurt Gentry. And this was about the Charles Manson murders with his family. That was it was a cult. They were very devoted to him. And the book itself, Helter Skelter, was flat out disturbing. It was about the time of those murders. It was about the trial, but all of the things that happened. It was very graphic. It was Sharon Tate was murdered along with other people in a home that I believe they were renting. It was it's been a long time since I've read it, and it's not a book that I'm ever planning to read again. But it was Sharon Tate, who was an actress. She was in The Valley of the Dolls. She was pregnant at the time, as well as other members in the family. And Charles Manson was not there when it happened. He sent his family to do it. And it was brutal and bloody and disturbing. And his I don't want to call it charisma, but he certainly had a way of influencing people, and that was more disturbing. I think the psychological part of it was perhaps more disturbing than the grotesqueness of the murders. But it was a very disturbing book, and I think eventually I got in trouble for reading it because I couldn't stop being concerned and being afraid, and so my parents were upset with me for having read the book, and I was probably 16 or 17. I honestly don't remember, but I remember hiding the book because it just completely it disturbed me. So that was a very, very hard read for me. The other one that I read, and again, my glasses, I hate to go back and forth, but I hate wearing them. Educated by Tara Westover. And it was a story about I believe they were Mormon, but had left the Mormon church. It was her family and the abuse that she endured while she was with her family. Her brothers were horrible to her, and it goes from just hunger and not having enough to broken bones and bruises, and it just sort of went on, and eventually she does leave the family and is able to receive an education. She's very, very intelligent, but the relationship with her family and the end result was just very disturbing. So that was another one that was difficult for me. And then another one is, I don't know, a lot of people might remember this because it was a big deal with Oprah. James Fry wrote a book called A Million Little Pieces, which I was anxious to read when it came out. It was about his addiction and his recovery, and the what happened during his recovery, and the things that he told about as he was trying to get help. He received some abusive treatment. The one that comes to mind for me is that, well, they wouldn't give him anything for pain because he was addicted to apparently painkillers. And so he went through dental procedures where he was not allowed to have any kind of anesthetic of any kind and things like that. And the thing that's interesting is, and it was called, James Fry wrote it. It was called A Million Little Pieces. And Oprah interviewed him. There was a lot of publicity surrounding it, and a lot of questions about the recovery process. And it came out over time, and he admitted it, that portions of it were not true. That he had made up parts of the story and made it more fantastic than it ever actually had been. I think that while I was reading it, I was telling talking to someone about how horrifying it was, and how the whole recovery system was torture. And it was probably my sister or a good friend who said, "This sounds a little unbelievable to me," and I doubted just a little bit. But then when it came out, in a way, I was disgusted that someone would do such a thing for money, obviously, and for this best-selling book that was a lie. But I was also a little bit relieved that it wasn't true, because it was pretty brutal. So anyway, more and more in my life, books that have content that are that disturbing, I've sort of just steered away from those, and more so with fiction than with true stories. I'm reading Unbroken now, and there are horrible acts of violence in that, and acts of torture, and but it's readable, and it needs to be read because it's the truth. But more and more, for a story where someone has made up and fictionalized horrible things and then described it in detail, I'm not interested in reading it anymore. So until the next time we get together, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, be kind to the planet, be blessed, enjoy spring. It's absolutely wonderful. Oh, and I just remember, oh no, that's not here. I got this out for spring because it's spring, and I think it's sweet. It was my mom's. It's the Hummel, and I love his little rabbits in a basket. So, y'all have a good day. Be blessed. Enjoy spring. Bye-bye.